You may have seen this, well, just about everywhere. It's the architectural concept that broke the internet.
Saudi Arabia has just shocked the world.
At first I thought it was a metaverse project, but it is a real project.
Saudi Arabia wants to build a city dubbed The Line.
The Lion? I want no part of that.
I'm going to be reacting to The Line.
This is definitely just a way for those in power to have more control.
The ingenious design of the city of future.
It's designed in 3 dimensions. Who do you think is going to be at the top?
The Line is a 170-kilometre long, 500-metre high mirrored linear city in the desert that either represents the cutting edge of architecture or a grim dystopian future, depending on who you ask. But what exactly is the Line? How would it even work? And what can it teach us about our cities today? Back in 2021, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia Mohammed bin Salman first announced plans for a new kind of sci-fi-like city called the Line.
نقدم لكم The Line. مدينة مليونية بطول 170 كيلو.
It's part of Neom, the kingdom's new nation-building megadevelopment that'll stretch across 26,000 square kilometres of desert. The Line's been pitched as a futuristic eco-city north of the Red Sea with no cars, no streets, and no carbon emissions. The Saudi government says it will create housing for more than 9 million people, and leaked documents reportedly show ideas for everything from robot maids to an artificial moon, flying cars, and just about everything else from the Jetsons. Think Dubai on steroids.
Well, I mean, it looks like something out of science fiction, but I believe that's the intention.
It is a huge and impressive PR and marketing endeavor before anything else.
The intention is not to be impressive. The intention is to be awesome in the literal sense. Hey, we are where innovation happens in the built world now.
The main question is not so much how or when, but why. And why do we need to build such a city? Why do we need to deploy those kind of resources for that kind of project? And why does the city need to look like that?
The entire Neom development is supposed to become so self-sufficient that it's being referred to as a country within a country, a place where residents will apparently be called Neomians rather than Saudis. Now, it's no secret that Saudi Arabia has been attempting to rebrand itself on the world stage, looking to the UAE as a template for a post-oil economy, along with the pie-in-the-sky mega projects that seem to go with that.
It has been folded into what is known as Vision 2030, which basically says that by the end of this decade, Saudi Arabia will look dramatically different. It won't be a kingdom reliant on oil anymore. Real estate is a big component of that plan.
It wasn't until July of 2022 that we got our first glimpse of what a linear city could actually look like outside of the science fiction movies, and it was unlike anything any of us had ever seen before. The city would essentially be sandwiched between 2 enormous structures that rise 500 metres into the sky and then stretch for 170 kilometres into the desert, easily the largest buildings ever constructed. They'd also be mirrored, and the idea of that is to minimise their impact on the surrounding environment. The 200-metre gap between these massive skyscrapers is where the city would then lie. Here there'd be a high-speed rail line connecting residents end-to-end in 20 minutes, eliminating the need for cars or roads. Homes, public parks, schools and offices will all be layered on top of each other, meaning that every amenity is accessible within a 5-minute walk, while parks and nature will be accessible from anywhere in the city within just a 2-minute walk. The whole thing takes the concept of the 15-minute city and explodes it. According to Neom, the entire city is going to be powered by renewable energy, and its minimal physical footprint will ensure that 95% of its land will be preserved as it is, a far cry from the urban sprawl of some modern cities that have now reached the size of small nations.
I see it more as a way to reshape the sprawl rather than avoiding the sprawl at all. And even if we look at the history of recent capitals built from scratch, the sprawl is always there. It actually starts and forms during construction when the city is not even built. So if we look at Brasilia today, 3 million people living there, the majority of which in the sprawl that formed around the pilot plan.
But little's actually known about the city itself, outside of the trailer and the glossy renderings. We do know that initial earthworks began back in October 2021, and that the first residents could start moving in by 2030. But aside from that, the project is mostly defined by its questions, and there are a lot of questions. Can you even build something like this? Can you have a city without cars, without streets or roads? What if everything you ever needed was within a 5-minute walk? Could we live in a hyper-planned place that didn't disrupt nature? Is a giant mirror in the middle of an Arabian desert a good idea? And how would the city evolve over time?
Well, some of it is so beyond our understanding at the moment because they are sort of raw engineering challenges that even the world's foremost engineers haven't really figured out to account for the curvature of the earth. You need to figure out how to have a break in the building. These are not problems that have been faced by any modern structures ever, right? And I think this is kind of the intention with Mohammed bin Salman, is he wanted to make something that was as had as much of a wow factor as the pyramids of Giza.
While the line may never appear exactly as it does in these renderings, it's possible we could see a scaled back version or some form of it sometime in the future.
I don't see the line as presented ever realized, but I do think there is a possibility where some of those ideas are tested in a mini version of it. The whole concept kind of breaks down. So in the end, you're making maybe not a line, you're making a dot.
If in the course of developing Neom, because there is very real money being thrown at this project, we find new innovations in structural engineering, we find new innovations in sustainability, we find a way to apply technology to the built environment at scale in a way that we hadn't before, that's fascinating and that's great. That's great for the world.
Strangely enough, there are many concepts on display here that aren't entirely new. For instance, a linear city has been dreamed up before, but not as a utopia, instead as a warning. The Italian architecture collective Superstudio created the continuous movement in 1969, a series of collages depicting vast blocks encircling the world, cutting through cities, mountains and valleys in much the same way that the line does. These striking artworks were meant as a criticism against mass urbanization, against cold, relentless architecture.
From an architectural perspective, the line as a concept is not new, has very deep roots. The main difference to me is how this city will heavily rely on technologies that are not quite ready yet.
As for the other areas of the city, some of it may not be as far-fetched as you might think. Many of our urban areas are already making changes to take cars off the road and prioritise walkability. There are digital twins of entire cities and programs that can regulate buildings remotely. And Neom is far from the only vision of a so-called smart city. Bjarke Ingels Group made headlines in 2020 when it introduced the Woven City that would be built near Japan's Fujiyama. It imagines a fully autonomous future with driverless vehicles and AI systems. There's also Egypt's new smart city that's being built near Cairo, and Telosa, a utopian vision for a new American metropolis. Now, none of these projects are perfect, and they've all got their fair share of criticism, but perhaps it is worth rethinking how our cities are structured. Right now, our modern urban areas don't work for everyone. 1 in every 52 people in London are homeless, while more than 1 million UK residents live in so-called food deserts, areas that have limited access to cheap, fresh food. A report from Groundwork UK found that there are severe inequalities in access to parks and green spaces across the country, with 40% of people from ethnic minority backgrounds living in the most green space deprived areas. Our cities need to function better, and having everything you need within a 5-minute walk might actually help lessen some of those inequalities, provided everyone has access.
What I do like about a bold project such as The Line is the ability to stir up the conversation and make us question and rethink how a city should look like.
In case you hadn't already noticed, The Line is a pretty bold idea, but it's supposed to be. And perhaps bold ideas are what we need to generate global debate around how to fix our built environments. Mirrored monoliths aside, more efficiently run cities with access to nature and local amenities for all might not be too far from where we really should be aiming. If you liked this video and you want to learn more about where construction is headed, make sure you're subscribed to tomorrow's build.